Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Pascal Fettig with Mental Health America of Boone County, and I'm here with the Boone County Chief Prosecuting Attorney Todd Meyer. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you, Pascal.
I was hoping to ask you a couple questions about something that I firmly believe in. As you know, Mental Health America and your office, and in particular your Victims Advocates section, collaborate quite a bit when it comes to domestic violence. And I'm a firm believer in protective orders or no contact orders. So I was hoping that you'd help guide us through explaining the importance of what a protective order has to a domestic violence case.
Sure, I'd be happy to help, and there are others that I know that we're going to talk about in my office that are certainly experts, if you will, in this area. The victims coordinators that work here in the office that are very familiar with the procedure and working with people to actually accomplish getting a protective order and a no contact order.
Okay. In your opinion, first of all, what is the difference between a protective order and a no contact order? I think there's a slight difference there.
Well, protective orders are the documents that accompany a criminal case. And if there is not a criminal case pending, then protective orders may not be available to you. Whereas in a civil context, you may seek no contact orders through the Boone County Clerk's office in order to have a judge sign one of those documents. And then there are some procedures after the fact there that you have to go through, and certain hearing requirements that have to occur in order for the order to continue and be in place. But protective orders, if they're issued along with a criminal case, those orders are going to remain in place so long as the criminal case is pending, or unless the protective order is dismissed in some fashion.
Okay. Now, if an individual, and I know men and women both can be victims of domestic violence, but mostly we deal with women, unfortunately. If an individual is involved in a domestic violence situation, how important do you feel it is to them to get a protective order?
Well, I think that it's a case-by-case basis. My general impression and observation of these types of situations and my experience in dealing with domestic violence cases is I think that it is, I would encourage victims in those cases to seek them and have them put into place. There are lots of maybe issues that are surrounding those particular types of cases. They're very sensitive, and the emotions are running high, and oftentimes maybe victims aren't thinking as clearly as they should be, not to their fault. It's just that the issue that they're involved in is perhaps clouding their vision. And oftentimes perpetrators of those types of crimes will take advantage of that when the victim's vulnerable, and could lead to escalation of the violence or other negative ramifications. So I would encourage a victim to seek a protective order, especially near the beginning of a case when things can escalate quickly. And like I said, throughout the course of the case and as things develop and change, hopefully for the better, maybe the protective order isn't necessary in the long run. But at least at the very beginning, I really would encourage people, especially if they're going to be separated from the perpetrator, to seek and receive a protective order. On that subject, my office has the authority to request a protective order on people's behalf without their consent. So, in most domestic battery cases, this office is requesting protective orders for the victims without necessarily getting their consent.
And that's great to hear. Would you say that also maybe a protective order will allow you to gather evidence if they're in contempt?
Yes, and I think that it assists in the initial investigation in keeping the free flow of information coming into the investigators, because one of the things that a perpetrator will do very often at the very early stages of an investigation is to try and close the mouth of the victim to keep her from offering testimony, evidence, statements to the police that they can follow up and pursue. So I think it's important for those reasons. And, unfortunately, my experience shows, statistics show that too often the victims of these types of crimes are not reaching out and getting these protective orders when they need them. And so I think it's just maybe a best practice in some regards for the prosecutor's office to seek these on behalf of victims.
Great. Now, if I were asked you, what would you think are the top 3 things a person seeking a protective order or no contact order should know?
One, that these orders are, despite what people will say, are enforceable, and they are going to do what they're set out to do, which is to protect the individual who is the subject of the protective order from further harm. That's priority number 1. 2, that the police are very versed in at least the initial phases of this and would be able to answer a lot of initial questions that somebody might have that's in this type of a situation. And 3, my office, through my victims assistance coordinator, has a lot of special skill and training in the area of protective orders, and they know exactly what's going to happen, can explain things very thoroughly, can walk somebody through the process, and will be there for them to answer any questions they might have, and to serve as a liaison between the police and the prosecutors that are working the case.
Okay, great. Now, do you think if in your experience and knowledge of the law, do you think there are things that we could do, or that maybe on the legislative level could do, to make protective orders and no contact orders more effective or better or stronger?
I think that with many issues facing the criminal justice system, there's always room for improvement. The volume in which the courts are dealing with protective orders and no contact orders in particular, I think might slow things down from time to time. The civil no contact orders that people seek, oftentimes people are seeking those for, I'll say, illegitimate reasons. So you get involved in maybe a situation that is dealing with people that are in a child custody dispute, for instance. They will make up facts in order to think that they're going to better their odds at winning their case. And one of the things that we see, I don't see it directly because I'm not working in that area, but I hear from the judicial officers that people are using these no contact orders to maybe be spiteful or revengeful, and if one person gets a no contact order, then the other person gets a no contact order, and it's this this cycle. It's that kind of thing that I'm mentioning that slows down the system. Mm-hmm. And perhaps if there were a way to better guard for those types of scenarios where these orders aren't really being used for legitimate purposes, that could be certainly very helpful. But that's a difficult undertaking.
Yes.
I think that also from a volume standpoint, you have these orders have to be served.
Right.
And so it is my understanding that Boone County does not have a dedicated officer that serves these orders. And I'm not saying that there needs to be one. I'm just saying I don't believe there is one. I know in some communities, maybe the larger communities, there are dedicated protective order service officers who, that's just all they do all day long. And I don't think that that's necessary in Boone County, but one of the things that's going on is we have arrest warrants that have to be served. We have subpoenas and other legal documents that have to be served along with protective orders. Now, I think protective orders in domestic battery scenarios normally are served immediately because the person's still incarcerated. And we normally, before the person's able to bond out of jail, we accomplish service on that person while they're at the jail. So, that works pretty smoothly and proves to be very effective.
Great. Now, where should people seeking a no contact or a protective order go for help?
I would encourage them to reach out to this office, and we can certainly help them initiate the process of obtaining a no contact order. We're not going to be directly involved in that throughout the course of it, because that is stepping kind of out of our lane. Now, with a protective order, though, that's something that is highly associated with what the work of this office is doing. Mm-hmm. So, we're going to be a part of that process throughout. But certainly the people that work in my victims coordination staff, they know who to go to in order to start the process of giving a civil order as well.
Yes, and as I said earlier, I've had the privilege and the opportunity to work with your victims advocates, and they are truly advocates for victims, and they do great work, and they work very hard, such as yourself, to uphold the law to its full extent. And where should they call if they need help?
Right. Well, first of all, right, go to the police. Call 911 if you're in an emergency situation. Yes. And as I said earlier, the police officers are trained in this area, and so they know how to be the first responders with information on this. They also know who to be contacting. I know that they'll reach out to your office as well in situations of domestic violence.
Yes.
And then certainly they'll know who to contact here at this office if they need to be involved in the process as well. So.
And we coordinate very, very closely. Well, Prosecutor Myers, please keep on doing what you're doing, and I really appreciate you sitting down with me. And hopefully, maybe some other time we'll talk about some other aspects of the law and things that you do here, and post them on our website and on our social media. I really appreciate what you did.
Sure. Thanks, Pascal.
Join us again next week. We'll be talking to Lynette Clark. We'll be dealing with issues on substance disorder and addictions. Thank you very much.